I would like to offer some apologies from Mayor Newman. He has a long-standing commitment to another ceremony as the Memorial Fire Chief, but he sends his well wishes to everyone here, along with Committeeman Pancoast, who spent his Memorial Day in Tennessee with his daughter and the Ocean City High School crew team as they attempted to win a national title. I don't think they were successful, but what a great experience.
Yes.
And lastly, but certainly not leastly, Committeeman Knappen, who he and his wife welcomed their third child into the world last night. So we don't anticipate him being here. So again, as we gather here to celebrate another Memorial Day, I would like to just extend our gratitude to Mr. Joyce and the residents of Osprey Point for once again creating this opportunity for our community to come together and honor our veterans. It's really a special thing to live in a place where not only is it acceptable to honor your veterans, but it's expected. That's not the case everywhere in the world today. So we really are very grateful and very thankful for that opportunity. It's very personal to us. I've made no secret that my son is active duty military in the U.S. Coast Guard. Mayor Newman, his son is active duty in the Air Force. Committeeman Corson himself served for a time. So it's important to us on a personal level that we honor our veterans. And we are just very grateful for that opportunity. Thank you all. So when Mr. Joyce asked me to speak to all of you today, I admittedly was a little nervous. Not about the speaking part, that comes pretty easy. But really, I've never served. So what was I going to share with all of you? So I started to think about the veterans in my family and the impact that their service has had on my life. I am the granddaughter of 2 World War II veterans. My paternal grandfather was a Navy pilot who fought in the Pacific. My maternal grandfather was an Army electrician who was part of the first wave of troops into Berlin. And he and I were very close. That was Pop Morgan. So if I get a little emotional, I apologize. He suffered some health issues when I was very young, and my grandmother had trouble caring for him by herself, so they sold their row home on Algard Street and bought the house across the street from us. I spent as much time as I could with them. Besides being doted on by my grandparents, my grandfather had lived a very interesting life, and I loved the stories that he would tell me of growing up in West Philadelphia, his favorite memories of Fairmount Park. Some of my favorite stories were the time he spent as a stagehand at the Forest Theater. And I can remember, even to this day, him being annoyed when The Wizard of Oz would come on, because when Judy Garland was there, she made him paint her dressing room 3 times because she couldn't decide on the color. Sadly, when I was about 13 years old, he passed away. And a few months after his passing, I was helping my grandmother go through his things and clean some things out. And I found this box buried in the back corner of his closet. And when I opened the box, inside I found some medals he had won or been awarded, dog tags that didn't belong to him, and an envelope full of pictures that contained some of the most horrific and terrifying scenes I've ever seen in my life. 30 years later, I could still recall those images to memory just from the photos. They were of a concentration camp that he had helped liberate. And he somehow smuggled those photos out of Germany and got them back home. And at that point in time, it occurred to me that of all the stories of his life he had shared with me, he never shared with me any of the time that he spent in World War II. He also had served in Korea, and he was stationed in France, so he did share some of that with him. But his time in World War II, he never spoke of. And I guess as a child, you never really think about that. I knew he served, but I never thought to really ask him questions about it. And I guess now that I'm a little older, I understand that he took those memories and he put them in a box in his closet because he needed to put that part of his life away so he could move forward and he could live and he could be happy. And at the time, the only thing I could think was, I wish I'd known. I wish I'd known. I wish I had the opportunity to tell him how proud of him I am. In the face of so much evil, he was such a force for good. And I made no secret last year as I stood here with all of you that my newly enlisted son was just a few days into his first 8-week tour at sea. His cutter's mission is drug interdiction and immigration. And as a mom, you have all the anxiety of a parent, but you also can hear all the unspoken words in your child's voice. So in those days leading up to his first deployment, I could hear all the anxiety and anticipation in him, which fed my anxiety and anticipation. By the time we got a phone call about 2 weeks in, his first port call where he had an opportunity to call home, I could hear shock. And by the time we got to 4 weeks, I could hear sadness and exhaustion. And I'm gonna get emotional here and I apologize, but he said, "Mom, there's just a lot of really desperate people out there. and they had been rescuing immigrants on boats sinking near death, for 4 weeks. And he went on to tell me that his shipmates had nicknamed him the Baby Whisperer. And in my naivety, thinking that we were talking about one instance, I asked him, well, why the Baby Whisperer? He said, well, I seem to be the only one who can calm the infants while their parents get medical attention. And I said, well, how old was the infant? And he said to me, Mom, my count is 27. 27 in 4 weeks from near-death experiences. So if they tell you that the immigration crisis is only at the southern border, they're not telling you the truth, but that's a different conversation. So the number, as shocking as it was, wasn't what really cut me to the core. It was the way in which he said it. He said it to me like he was telling me the price of a gallon of gas. And I thought in that moment of that box in my grandfather's closet. And I realized that he was compartmentalizing pieces of himself to be able to move forward, that he was sacrificing pieces of himself to be able to be a force for good in the world and be able to move forward with his life and continue to do good. So as we gather here today to recognize all the fallen veterans who made the ultimate sacrifice, I would also like to take the opportunity to say thank you to all of the current and active duty veterans and retired veterans for the small sacrifices in their lives that they made all the way along the way. And just to say that we're all proud of you. Thank you.